He was the resilient voice that a warrior who transformed suffering into gold hits, but behind tattoos and jelly rolls quietly, a quiet conflict was taking place. One he concealed even from his closest fans, followed by a brief backstage scene opened it up completely, and what left his whole crew feeling unsettled. There were signs, but did anyone see them? Jelly Roll has been around for years. More than merely a performer on the charts, he has represented survival since cells in prison to the Grammy stage. The voyage reads like a nasty movie scenario. Heartfelt and unfiltered, yet even the strongest voices can falter when the weight becomes very heavy and closed behind. Jelly Roll has been transporting a responsibility that was more darker than everyone had anticipated. Close sources for the country rap artist have demonstrated that current occurrences have rocked him to his foundation as admirers celebrated and applauded his sold-out performances. Jelly Roll, his popular breakthrough was silently battling a personal crisis, one which endangered not just his career, but his relationships and health, and even his determination to continue. It wasn't a public or tabloid scandal. Meltdown, there was more to it than that. Something that appeals to the very human he has always sang about: his struggles with addiction. Fear and the spectral presence of trauma that doesn't quite go away, and he has alluded to the dark days in interviews. Coming back, but nobody realized how near he was truly on the brink up to this point. According to insiders, it began with mild deletes. Missed calls seems to have a faraway expression in his eyes. But then the pivotal moment arrived. Private crisis that compelled him to face everything he believed he had conquered, a tough moment that left others in his immediate vicinity dreading the worst, and nevertheless, he continued to do what he always does: pretend to be brave for his admirers. However, the mask is beginning to come off. In the upcoming moments, we will be delving into the terrible information. Jelly Roll never intended to convey the reality of what's been taking on behind the scenes of the music tour journeys, the limelight, and as the image develops, one question remains. Similar to smoke in the atmosphere, the man who sprang from the bottom of the rock to survive this autumn, prior to the Billboard and Bright Lights charts, prior to the arenas being sold out, and he was just Jason, and he gave heartfelt award speeches. DeFord, an Antioch child, Nashville, Tennessee, neighborhood where it was rare for aspirations to come true and seldom were second chances granted on. Jason's early life began on December 4, 1984, and he was raised in a difficult environment. Working-class household where the mother is fighting addiction, mental health conditions, and a father who drove a truck and sold meat to make ends meet. His surroundings were unclean, erratic and frequently harsh, although amidst the pandemonium, a young Jason found music to be a weird source of comfort. Particularly the truth-telling sort. He was drawn to rap music, which became his haven. To artists who displayed their suffering, such as Armor like 36 Mafia guys and Tupac, who transformed wounds into songs, but even as he began imagining and writing rhymes concerning anything larger, the streets were already phoning. When he was a Jason, a teenager, had fallen into a life they were similar to those in the songs he idolized: criminal activity and incarceration. At the age of 14, he was detained for he was in and out for the first time by the age of 16. Of youth incarceration, and shortly after there was a felony charge against him that would remain with him for many years. Numerous that would have marked the conclusion of the road, a ticket that leads to nowhere, but there was something within him that would not go away. Jason started softly throughout serving time. In order to improve his writing, he poured his feelings into poetry by scrawling lyrics when incarcerated and daydreaming about he hadn't seen the stage yet, but it wasn't only, it was survival therapy, and when he eventually left, he adopted the name Jelly. His mother gave him the nickname Roll as a fat child and turned it into he started selling a harsh honesty brand. Mixtapes from his vehicle's trunk, taking part in underground performances and working together with other Southern rappers, had no managers, and the grind was real. merely unadulterated talent and a budget. His music described a persistent will. Addiction, destitution, dysfunctional households, and redemption as concrete concepts rather than as living experiences, and gradually the world become aware, but success didn't seemingly overnight. Jelly Roll was rejected by the general public as just his emergence as another underground act, frequently heavily set and covered in tattoos. The polished image didn't match the emotional one. Despite popular culture, which is what made him genuine, which is why his fan base expanded. Extremely devoted, they weren't merely they were alive while they listened to his tunes. The behind-the-scenes life of Jelly Roll shifted as well, and he became a father at an event that altered him at a young age more than any popular song ever could. Bailey Ann, the anchor's daughter, the reason he persisted in his storm when everything else seemed to be after he fell apart. He met Bunny So, a model and podcaster who turned into not just his wife, but he has his rock. Through the most difficult times, and providing his faith in rekindled love and family became the focal point of his universe. Even as traveling and establishing his reputation, Jelly Roll ensured his followers were aware of what truly meant to him, his wife, and his children. With the notion of creating a more positive legacy compared to the one he comes from, the demons have never completely vanished. He has been candid about his continuous struggle with mental health and addiction, recognizing that although the celebrity may have increased, the discomfort didn't go away on its own. Disappear. His ascent to fame in country music wasn't something that nobody, not even him, anticipated. However, when he entered the genre, combining twangy music with his unfiltered lyrics, melodious and moving narratives, that suddenly, a completely new audience found Jelly Roll. But they didn't see merely an artist, but a man with endured the type of suffering that most people conceal. His breakthrough single, Lush Son of a Sinner, encapsulated the paradox. The pressure and pull that resided inside him between failure and faith, between the song about redemption and relapse, launched him into a new level of receiving accolades, making TV appearances, and even a tearful Grand Ole Opry premiere for the Antioch Child was a complete moment in the circle that made him cry eyes and quiet in a space full with legends. But as his fame grew, the burden of his history never went away. Jelly Roll has frequently stated that he is not interested in fame. Instead, he wants to remain influential, and he aspires to be the voice that serves as a reminder that broken people are not alone. And that great mission takes a toll that the pressure has had behind the scenes mounted, and with each victory came more greater accountability, higher demands, and nights wondering while gazing at the ceiling if he was sufficient, and lately those family cracks have started to appear. Longtime partners and insiders have suggested that Jelly Roll's burden been carrying his present and his past function as a public figure, spouse, and father figure is starting to close the gap with him. A silent health warning that sounded like thoughts of fatigue and the underlying emotional strain. The storm has been exacerbated by closed doors. He's still churning beneath the surface, grinning while continuing to give his all to his admirers, but those closest to him claim that something has changed and he is backing off. Deeper contemplation and struggle with if he can actually escape the suffering he has been singing about, and we can find Jelly Roll there nowadays. As a man as well as a musician. Trapped between his getaway life and the life he's created as a father, spouse, and combatant, and possibly more so today than ever, a soul seeking tranquility in a world that continues to drag him back into the flames. What occurs next in his narrative is still unknown. Unwritten, yet there is no doubt that the fight is far from over, and the next chapter may be the most significant one to date. For months, there had been rumors circulating in the camp of Jelly Roll is not from tabloids or bloggers, but from people who know him best. His family, his tour crew, and even his Bunny Zoe, the wife, had started to observe the indications of the restless nights, the growing exhaustion during stage performances where he appeared aloof rather than disconnected, not just from the music but also from himself. Something wasn't quite right, and suddenly the moment that shot shivers down his spine, a private medical emergency within the inner circle hours before. To a significant appearance, insiders claim that Jelly Roll had fainted while in his dressing room. Prior to leaving to meet a crowded audience, the room briefly became silent. And mayhem, the subsequent EMTs were referred to be his. He was pale because his blood pressure had increased. Trembling and straining to grasp his initially, fans were informed that breath was fatigue brought on by the tour schedule overtook him, but those on the understood deep inside that this wasn't just fatigue was a red flag for his body. Was yelling what was going through his head. He was so proud to declare out that he was burning out. Doctors recommended complete rest right away. Halt touring and delve deeply into his general well-being, but Jelly Roll is always there were dates when the fighter pushed back. Booked fans waiting commitments, he believed he was unable to abandon the cancellation. Felt like a betrayal of promises, and if Jelly Roll has one thing that she always has, never allowed his followers to do it. Down as he understands how it feels to be abandoned and remain closed doors, the truth was indisputable for years. Of mental and physical stress and struggles with mental health had taken the man who had previously defeated addiction was now dealing with an additional type of beast, is the relentless pressure to maintain everyone else's strength while quietly disintegrating himself. There were more than just the collapses. Additional warning signs of a missed podcast for a couple. Seeing Bunny together is uncommon. So transparent and cohesive, a brief break from social media, a number of delayed interviews without a detailed explanation. The man who used to open up on the internet had stopped talking, and admirers started to notice, and the admission did not follow in not a dramatic headline for a news release but during a silent late-night live broadcast with just a faint lamp shining on his face. Speaking to his supporters, Jelly Roll did not act as a star, but I haven't been able to. All right. He acknowledged that his voice was breaking. I believed I could carry everything, but I can't. I've been exhausted, afraid, and I had been disregarding my own warning indicators. He continued talking for too long about the strain of having to perform while battling panic and anxiety assaults, acknowledging that he had fallen, returning to bad habits, not drugs, but isolation, pushing, and emotional eating his boundaries before his body gave out. And discover what made the moment so potent. Wasn't only his candor, it was also his Jelly Roll's humility. The man who once looked down on addiction and jail walls was now acknowledging something, possibly even more difficult since he was human, and that he required assistance. In the days after fans gathered around him with love messages, assistance and comprehension flooded in from anywhere on the internet, his spouse Bunny posted a heartfelt statement on her own post, letting everyone know that power isn't about being fine all the time, it's about recognizing when to take a break, recover, and request elegance. Yet as the dust became more deeply, reality surfaced, one that shook even the most devoted fans, that physicians had learned that Jelly Roll was present at significant chance of long-term health issues if he didn't make a change. Chronic high blood pressure, core stress, and cardiac warning indicators strain had all appeared in the most recent tests. The types of problems that go unchecked could prematurely take a life. He was offered to decide to pause and confront these problems today, or else you could not be around to complete the legacy he began. It was a wake-up call that was impossible to ignore. Jelly Roll started to reorganize in silence. Everything he extracted from a number of forthcoming performances, he turned his attention to recuperation on a physical and emotional level. In his spiritual life, he began to notice a therapist once more, collaborating with a trainer, and re-establishing a spiritual connection. Behaviors he had given up during the flurry of achievement, but more significantly, he began having serious conversations with his family, to Bunny talking candidly with his daughter about he had hidden his concerns for years. Yet the reality is that the suffering never completely abandons you and simply seeks a new locations to conceal. Followers who have followed, he has been aware for years that this isn't the first he's been through storms before, but this one feels distinct, this isn't about recovering. It's about deciding to live despite failing. Completely, even when you feel as like you're shattering, which is what makes this chapter, Jelly Roll isn't that strong. Longer, only the underdog became victorious. That man at the top is him. Glancing back at the shadows and deciding to proceed with clarity, although devastating, this moment could become the most significant event in his life, not due to the actual problem, but because of his next course of action. Will he return with greater strength and focus? Will he consciously assume control of his well-being and ultimately prioritize himself, or will expectations bring you down? He returned to the grind that nearly stopped everything, but nobody is certain. However, one thing is evident: Jelly Roll's The Tale is not yet complete. It is currently being penned heartbreak line by heartbreak, victory by victory, and if this chapter has demonstrated all that even our heroes require recovery in order to fans, our only option for now is to wait and hope that when he takes the stage again, not only to sing for us, but also because he genuinely wants to be there in good health and prepared to start over for all of the unfiltered lyrics, and all the Jelly Roll's greatest sold-out arenas accomplishment that can't be discovered on a Billboard list. Yet he works quietly, has impacted lives outside of the stage due to the fact that behind the tattoos and a man with a difficult past has created a legacy based not only on achievement but also on Jelly Roll's service over the years, has utilized his position not out of conceit but rather for visibility for those who are not aware of the imprisoned, those who are hooked, and he hasn't only sung about being broken-hearted. He has experienced atonement, and he's reached back to yank people from one of his strongest weapons is fire. Contributions were made when he went back to the identical juvenile correctional facility, and he was briefly detained in Nashville as a teen, but he didn't enter this time, as he entered as a mentor to an inmate. Contributed a music studio will be constructed inside for $250,000. The facility is providing juvenile prisoners with and gives someone a voice and a cause for belief that they were able to change their tales. I wanted to inspire hope in these children. In a 2023 interview with CBS, he stated, "Perhaps the music in the morning saved my life. Can spare theirs as well, but his attempts failed." Additionally, Halt Their Jelly Roll has been a strong supporter of mental health awareness, addiction treatment, and he has given speeches on criminal justice reform at nonprofits that support recovery centers. His social media was used by re-entry programs, raising funds for families by doing the following: impacted by addiction throughout a period of a lot of celebs avoid being real. Jelly Roll enters into global concerns. Even his wife-husband relationship now, Bunny So, is a symbol of love, and together, they've turned their Healing Turning Dumb Blondes podcast into a platform where healing and atonement for trauma are discussed candidly, providing listeners with not only amusement but also emotional solace. Fans of Jelly Rolls are more than just supporters. His concerts seem less as they are surviving, more akin to group therapy than shows gatherings where random people join in on their own suffering and recovery, and that maybe the core of his influence is that he's built a community in which he has been given a voice. For those who felt unheard, he has demonstrated that your history does not define you. He has reminded us in the future that although messy, redemption is now possible. As he confronts one of the most challenging chapters, the legacy of Jelly Roll's life feels more pressing than before, not because to fear, but due to the belief that a man can ascend from the bottom of a rock again, but this time not for publicity or praise, but for him, the tale of it's not a fairy tale, Jelly Roll. Tidy, well-polished, or dependable, it's a battle card ballad that is full with negative daring comebacks, decisions, and broken hearts and incomplete lines, but that's the main makes it extremely potent, since when Jelly Roll enters the stage and brings all the components of his narrative beside him, and when he fades from the public eye, it's a reminding us that even our heroes suffer. Rest is sometimes necessary for our best voices. And the guy who offered us hope might even more than ever before. So if you've ever discovered solace in his songs, if he have lyrics ever supported you during an insomniac night, if his trip reminded believe that recovery is achievable, then this is now the time for you to arrive for him. Love him and help him get better, and if as you fight your own struggle, let him tale serves as a reminder that you are not alone. And there's always time to start.